I'm Sarah Reed, Managing Director at the Center for Interfaith Relations, and on behalf of our board and our staff, thank you very much for having us here today. Simmons College is our state's oldest African-American college, founded in 1879 by 12 freed individuals known as the General Association of Baptists. They gathered and were dedicated to educating the first generation after emancipation. And I think it's very fitting that we're here to announce the 2021 Festival of Faith's Sacred Change, Essential Conversations on Faith and Race. Thank you to Reverend Dr. Cosby and the supreme executive team here at Simmons College for your hospitality today, your leadership, and your commitment to this year's festival. The Center for Interfaith Relations has the marquee event of the Festival of Faiths. Throughout our 25 years of history, we have celebrated diversity in all its forms, including the rich and substantive stories from Black faith communities in our city. And recently, we've all had the experience of 2020, events that have occurred around the world and particularly in our city of Louisville, all events pointing to the need for change. As people protested on the streets of Louisville to demand justice for Breonna Taylor, the Center for Interfaith Relations issued a statement of solidarity. Solidarity with all who are harmed, hated, disrespected because of the color of their skin, and with initiatives and movements that work to cultivate a culture of anti-racism. In 1962, James Baldwin wrote an essay to the New York Times, and in it he quoted, "Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed unless it's faced." This year's festival, Sacred Change, Essential Conversations of Faith and Race, is dedicated to facing the truths of today, including the spiritual crisis brought on by persistent and oppressive racism. We will do this by drawing on the wisdom of our faith traditions as guides to create transformation and change that bends towards justice. The 2021 festival seeks to celebrate the unique beauty, power, and strength of Black faith experiences while facing the profoundly brutal outcomes of genocide, slavery, and profit at any cost. To do this work, we formed a group of our city's preeminent scholars and theologians on the subjects of faith and race. And they've helped us curate topics and sessions with the backing of the most committed post-secondary institutes in our city on this topic. These institutions include Simmons College, Baptist Seminary of Kentucky, University of Louisville and the Ann Braden Institute, Spalding University, and Louisville Presbyterian Theological Seminary. And we'll be hearing from these thought leaders in our press conference today. So allow me to invite Reverend Dr. Cosby to the podium.
Thank you so much, Sarah, and to my neighbor, President McClure, and to all of you, my friends, welcome to Simmons College of Kentucky, hallowed and sacred ground here in our city. The word dialogue is an interesting Greek word. Its origins is in the Greek language. The prefix dia literally means across. And the root word logos in the Greek line means ideas, concepts. So therefore, dialogue is when people get together and they share their concepts and ideas and experiences across some divide. Our world is in need of dialogue, not monologue, where one person or one group acts as the authority and articulates for other people what their actual experiences is. The reason our world is in the mess it's in, for example, in Afghanistan, is because often Western arrogance and Western hegemony, instead of listening to people, we often superimpose our values, our ideas, and misclassify people. So that is why the Festival of Faith has always been at the forefront of helping us to heal the wound that is in our country and our world. And there is no greater wound in our country than the wound of race. Seeing things through different people's experiences. We all have biases, what is often called observation bias. So when I look at something, I bring my biases, my observation biases to what I'm looking at. And I've got a little acronym for that, EVE. Whenever I look at someone or look at an experience, I bring to it my experiences. So I've never, for example, experienced a quote-unquote black-led institution like at Simmons, which is a black-led, black-governed institution. And all my life, I've been in white space. Then how can I make an accurate assessment of the value of the institution if all my experiences has been in white space? V stands for values. What I have been taught is important. What I've been taught is the way the world is supposed to work. And while the world may work a certain way for me, my experience is not normative for everyone else and it's not universal. So helping to understand other people's experiences is critically important in dialogue. And then the final letter in E is expectations. I see what I expect to see. If you're going to get an assessment of a piece of property, do not hire a buzzard. Because the buzzard will fly over carpets of green grass, flowers popping up through those carpets of green grass, perfuming the air, the rolling hills, the beautiful trees. And let me tell you what the buzzard will report on. Dead rabbits. And that's because the buzzard has been programmed only to see certain things. And all of us have been programmed to see certain things as it relates to race. And only when we're open to dialogue, which means as a Christian and as a Black American, I must be willing to listen to dialogue to people who are different from, who have a different faith tradition than me, or those who do not have a faith tradition at all. So for example, my atheist brothers and sisters. And listen to them. And it may be that they may approximate Christ, the atheist, more than me. You know, Mother Superior said to the lead priest, I've been telling the kids about heaven, but they don't want to go, and I don't understand it. And the priest said, well, Mother Superior, have you told them that you're going to heaven? To which she said, yes. And the priest said, well, that explains why they don't. So I'm excited to welcome the Festival of Faith to Simmons. We're honored to participate. And let's just pray and hope that as a result of our dialogue, across the racial divide, that we can come together. I'll close with this. There was a revolution in 1676, exactly 100 years before the American Revolution. It was called the Bacon Revolution, the Bacon Revolt. And blacks and whites came together in coalition, which is what must take place. Coalition building between blacks and whites. And they came together, poor whites, indentured servants, and slaves, to fight the might of the British Empire that was oppressive against them. And they won. And that same year, in October of 1676, British came down, destroyed the revolution, and then set something in motion that is still in place today. And that is to lift poor whites up just a little bit higher than blacks, so that whites would receive what William Edward Burghardt Boyce called the psychological wage of whiteness, which is to say that white common people and working class people are suffering too. But instead of turning to other poor blacks and immigrants, we turn on each other instead of to each other in order to create what Martin Luther King Jr. called the beloved community. It is my hope that we can really have some ideas to cross the racial divide with the purpose of us coming together to create a better society, so that we not only will not study war anymore, but when we drive off of expressways, there will not be people holding up signs in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, begging for food, houseless people begging for shelter, sick people begging for proper medicine and health care. Thank you so much. Let's get this thing going.
Good afternoon, friends.
Good afternoon.
My name is Dr. Lewis Brogdon. I am the director of the Institute for Black Church Studies and the research professor for preaching and Black Church Studies at the Baptist Seminary of Kentucky, that is housed right here on the campus of Simmons College of Kentucky, a white seminary in black space. With the tragic deaths of Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and George Floyd, the summer of 2020 was another moment of reckoning. Like moments in the past, these intense moments exposed the facade of a just society, rooted in the lies that we tell ourselves about the kind of nation we are. The truth is, America was built on the enslavement of Africans and the genocide of Native Americans. Racism and structural injustice are a part of the fabric of America, and every generation must confront and challenge it so as to correct it. It is our refusal to do this that brings us back to painful moments like this. But as tragic as moments of reckoning can be, there is hope, because in these moments we have a choice. We have a choice about the kind of nation we can be. These moments of reckoning bring us to a crossroads. And in 2021, America is at a crossroads. That is why I am honored to be a part of this year's Festival of Faiths conference. In 2020, the city of Louisville and its racism was exposed before the world. This conference represents our recognition of this and our willingness to look to ourselves to find ways to make repair. It takes two things that are staples in the Black faith tradition: courage and imagination, things that are in short supply today. You need to be a part of this year's festival. I am honored to curate one of the sessions represented by the Baptist Seminary of Kentucky, where we will explore a particular aspect of the legacy of Black faith. Because the legacy of Black faith is often admired as an enduring hope, an abiding strength, and a dogged determination that has sustained African Americans for centuries. But there is something amiss about this story of faith. the very resiliency and creativity of Black faith, so admired and so much more accepted by white America than other practices of Black survival and resistance, has always been forged in the crucible of pain, trauma, and nihilism. So rather than romanticizing and trivializing Black faith, I will curate a session where we will explore how Black faith grapples with multi-generational violence, social displacement, crippling despair, and a sense of meaninglessness. My session will not just be historical in nature, but we will explore the efficacy of Black faith today. I am looking forward to seeing you in November for this year's festival. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I am Dr. Brandon McCormick, a professor at University of Louisville in Pan-African Studies and Comparative Humanities, and now the director of the Ann Braden Institute for Social Justice Research there at U of L. First of all, thanks to Dr. Cosby for having us here at Simmons, and for the Festival of Faith for having us as well. I was told to be brief and to take 2 minutes. I've followed these great speakers, so let me just be informal to talk about how excited I am to be a part of this 25th annual Festival of Faith with this particular theme of addressing faith and race. It's important. As a professor who teaches African American religion, I track the ways that religion is used and abused, particularly with reference to Black folks in America. And so we know that religion has been among the favorite tools of oppressors. Amen. That have been used to justify injustice and to sanctify the belief that some lives are less sacred than others. We've seen that very, very recently in the ways that white evangelicals have baptized their anti-Blackness in Christian belief, right? And we've had to push against that. We've seen the ways that it's justified the murder of our people and the continuing oppression of our people. But we've also seen the ways that religion and spirituality historically have been tools and inspiration for liberation and social movements for change that have inspired people of different walks of life to make this world and this country a place that's more just and much more of the beloved community for everyone. And we want to lean into that latter sense of the use of religion and spirituality. And so this particular conference allows us to begin to do that, especially in a city that's been so torn apart, that's been so ravaged by racism and the ways that that racism has been baptized by religion in this past year. And so I'm very much looking forward to this year's Festival of Faith. I was talking to Sarah Riggs-Reed. We were having conversations about everything that was on tap for this year. It is wonderful, it's great. And I was saying that I'm always conscious as a professor of African American religion, the ways that Black religion is never monolithic. That it can never be reduced down to the Black church tradition. Even though I'm born, raised, and rooted in that tradition, I'm more and more cognizant of the ways that young people in particular, especially those young people who fought and struggled in the streets in summer of 2020, are looking to different faith traditions and different horizons to make meaning of their own lives and to inspire their own social justice movements. And so I said, as much as we talk about the Black church tradition of which I am a part, we also have to think about how we give expression to those who are making meaning of the world in and through these other traditions. And so I was asked to curate a session entitled The Ghosts and Growing Edges of Black Faith, Intersectional and Intergenerational Conversations. I'm looking forward to that. That Ghosts helps us to name the ways that even our Black faith traditions have become complicit in our own suffering and injustice. Insofar as oftentimes Black evangelicals have not been too far apart from their white evangelical counterparts on certain issues with regard to race, and we have to address and name that. We've often been as patriarchal, as sexist, as homophobic as some of our other counterparts. And so we name that in the ways that it pushed some of our young people out of our faith traditions. And so we'll talk about that. But we'll also talk about the growing edges, which is to say that the ways that young Black folks haven't necessarily been pushed away from God or from religion, but found new ways to give expression to that. And so we'll look at these other faith traditions. So we've invited folks like the Reverend Dr. Starsky Wilson, who was a pastor and a central figure in the Ferguson uprisings there out of St. Louis, and he will be on our panel. But we'll also have Sonny Patterson out of New Orleans, who is a practitioner of the African-derived Ifa and Orisha-based tradition, who is a freedom fighter and an organic intellectual. And we've invited a third participant, whose name I won't name because we haven't been able to quite confirm, but we do hope that she joins us, who's out of Durham, who has worked with the Spirit House organization there in Durham that works with intergenerational trauma, especially with our Black LGBTQ youth who have often been marginalized among Black marginalized communities. And so we're very excited about that panel and about the ways that it'll speak to those ghosts and growing edges to help us to heal and help us to imagine new ways of being in the world together. And so I look forward to having everyone to come out and be a part of that panel. Thank you.
Our final session for the festival is being co-hosted by Chandra Irvin of Spalding University and Dr. Alton Pollard of the Louisville Presbyterian Seminary. They both had conflicts on their schedule, but I tricked Chandra Irvin into coming here and asked her to sit up here because she does represent one of the thought leaders that's helping curate this. But she came, and I promised her that I wouldn't put her on the spot to make remarks. So I wanted to explain her presence, and then I'm assuming you were okay with that still. Okay, and then I'll see if you'll wrap us up here.
Well, hello to one and all. My name is Owsley Brown, and I am the volunteer chair of the Festival of Faith this year, and also a member of the Center for Interfaith Relations Board. It is a great honor in both of those roles to stand before you and to be here, Dr. Cosby, in this historic moment, in this historic building, and also in a room that is part of the origin story of how this year's festival came to be. In listening to the board of directors of the Center for Interfaith Relations, Sarah Reed and I, along with our board chair, Attorney Barry, were asked to respond very directly and overtly to the times that we were finding ourselves in. With the COVID backdrop, we had been on pause with our festival activity, and it seemed not only obvious to the board, but very obvious to Sarah, Attorney, and myself that it was absolutely appropriate that we would dedicate a festival to the theme of race within the spiritual context. Shortly after that decision had been concluded, I was invited to a meeting at Simmons College, and Dr. Cosby, who has been a longtime friend to the Festival of Faith, as well as supporter and participant within the festival, in a quiet moment, leaned over and said, I think it would be kind of great if the Festival of Faith might consider dedicating an entire festival to the theme of race in the spiritual context. And that was in April of this year. And I was, of course, elated when I heard that, and was particularly pleased to be able to say on the spot, let's do it. And so that brings us here to this, in my mind, historic moment to, against the backdrop of our 25-year history, think very plainly and clearly about our future. We have used this time since our last festival to think a lot about where we could go based on where we've been, and it is very fitting and by all means appropriate that this theme will, in our minds, be the beginning of what we hope to be another 25 years of history making. We look to the festival as being a unique forum, a safe forum within which to have difficult yet honest conversations. And we believe that this year's festival theme will mark the beginning of a chapter to explore the subject of race over many, many years to come. There's no way in any one context that you could possibly address all of the concerns of any given moment, let alone anticipations of what might come. But we are earnest in our attempts to use this year's forum as a special effort on our part to listen in new ways, and I hope to learn in new ways, and I hope to grow in new ways. That is to say, all of the festival stakeholders and participants and gatherers, those who come around the festival and look to the festival for leadership with respect to difficult conversations. I think we'll be able to use this year's festival, especially from the curatorial side, which opens up, as you have heard already, a new approach on the festival organizing side in terms of how to curate a festival. I feel we will really have a unique offering this year. On behalf of certainly myself and so many others, including my mother, Christy Brown, one of the original founders of the Center for Interfaith Relations, I know that we feel greatly humbled with the opportunity and responsibility to help lead our community in this time, and also our hope that this effort here in Louisville can play out as an example to the world beyond. We've prided ourselves for years that the Festival of Faith can be a very localized event, but relevant to the world around us. And I hope and pray and believe that this year's festival will be an especially good example of that possibility and capacity. So again, it is a great honor to be associated with this year's festival. I so look forward to working with each of you all and partnering in new ways to think about new possibilities, to have new kinds of conversations about what's true and what's possible. And I thank you all very, very much for the chance to collaborate with you in that endeavor. Thank you.
Are not to be excited about the possibilities. So again, we ask you to join us November 18th through the 20th as renowned speakers and artists help us challenge prevailing narratives and explore pathways to truth and repair. Our deepest prayer is that relationships will be formed around this whole concept of anti-racism in our city. Tickets will go on sale September 1st at the Kentucky Center of the for the Performing Arts. We are watching the COVID-19 and the Delta variant situation very closely. Already following the guidelines of the Kentucky Center and the recommendations of the CDC, it will be an indoor event. We will be asking for masks to be worn. We will be limiting the theater size to allow for some social distancing. As always, we'll be live streaming the events. And we will be monitoring, we will be asking you to be prepared with proof of vaccination or a recent negative COVID test. Should circumstances require for us to go completely virtual, we are prepared. We've been doing it for years. We're ready. We're not hoping for that possibility, but we hope to be together in person. But this festival will go on, and it will be amazing, and we will deliver it in virtual means if that's what's necessary. Please sign up for our newsletter at centerforinterfaithrelations.org to find out about pre-festival events, speaker announcements, and event details as we get closer. And we ask you to pick up a charcuterie board that's produced by Garden Girl, a local business, Black-owned business. We're very excited to experience her craft, and a beverage when we're done. But thank you very much for coming. We look forward to seeing you in November.